Welcome to Dicta, your weekly dose of law school and bar exam info. I'm Carrie Ann.
And I'm Pouyan, and we're the Vinco team.
Today we're going to be talking about the process of transferring law schools. And this is something that I don't have a lot of experience with because I went to one law school for all 3 years. But Pouyan here transferred after his first year. So I'm going to ask him some questions about that experience for anyone thinking of transferring. All right. So why did you want to transfer?
Well, I was going to a school a couple states away, and I realized that people were developing connections and networks with local people near the school, and that's not where I intended to practice when I finished law school. So I wanted to move closer to the New York region, the tri-state area where I intended to reside after law school. So that's what I sought out, and that's what I eventually did.
And you said you made that realization after your first semester of law school?
Yeah, so by the end of my first semester, as soon as I finished final exams, I realized that I needed to transfer, or at least try. So I began doing all the research between my first and second semesters, and I figured out all the requirements for transferring, which was different for every school. And the most important thing is I figured out the deadlines for each school that I intended to transfer to, and they varied drastically depending on the school.
I mean, it's like applying in the first place. Everything was so different with the deadlines and different things that each school required in their application package. So specifically, what steps did you take in your second semester? Sending out your applications?
Right. So the first thing I did was find 2 teachers who could write me letters of recommendation, because a lot of the schools that I transferred to required letters of recommendation. Aside from that, as I already said, I found the deadlines, and a lot of schools required like personal statements and things like that. So I really began assembling the packages for each school and sending everything out.
Organizing your materials.
Yeah, definitely.
And when did you find out whether you had been accepted to some of these schools or not?
Right, so I finished my 1L year, the second semester, and I had actually by that point registered for my 2L year classes. And it wasn't till a month later that I received my first admission to a school that I intended to transfer to.
Wow.
And within a few weeks of that, more admissions began trickling in, and I think my final admission was received like a week before my 2L year was going to begin.
So no stress there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, moral of the story is you have to be prepared to continue on at the law school you started at.
Absolutely.
And, so you want to keep those relationships there and keep your good reputation, not burn any bridges, even if maybe you're not happy and that's why you want to leave, because you might still have to stay there for another semester.
Definitely. I mean, that's a very true point, but even aside from that, you never want to burn your bridges. I still associate with people that I made friends with during my 1L year, and some of them have actually moved to the New York region now, and I got lunch with one of them last week. So you never want to burn the bridges. Despite the vast number of lawyers, the community is smaller than you may think.
And I mean, definitely your 1L friends, the people you meet your first year of law school, you tend to never forget them and keep those friendships because you go through that super stressful situation together. But on that note, how was it coming into a new law school in your second year after people had already started to form those friendships?
So it was a little bit isolating because everyone was already in their groups. They had formed tight, what would you say, like little cliques?
Yeah, they're little who was friends with who was dating who had dated who in the past.
Exactly,
You weren't privy to all that information.
And who had broken down during final exams in the first year. But I didn't know any of that. I didn't know who any of the 1L professors were, which some of whom were notorious for certain things.
Yeah, so who not to take in your second or third year.
I didn't know any of that. So I was a little bit of an outsider, and it was a little isolating, but all things considered, I'm glad I did it, because this is the geographic range where I wanted to practice, and it turns out I made the right decision by transferring.
Yeah, it definitely seems like it was the right move for you. So it seems like if you are a 1L right now thinking of transferring in the future, this information can really help you along that process. But it also sounds like if you are taking the LSATs now or applying to law school now, really try to get in where you want to practice, where you want to go to school, because this doesn't sound like the best experience to have to go through if it can be avoided.
Right. if you have not yet begun to attend law school, my recommendation is that put extra time into the LSAT because your undergrad GPA is set. There's nothing you can do to fix that. But the LSAT is the major variable that's going to determine what schools are going to accept you. My thought process was, I'm going to submit this LSAT score, get into wherever I get into, and if I need to, I'll transfer. Little did I know that studying for an extra few months for the LSAT would have been much, much easier than how much I had to kill myself to rank highly in my 1L class to transfer.
Yeah.
I mean, I transferred laterally, which means I transferred from my tier school to the same tier, so a similar ranking.
Right.
And for that, the requirements vary based on school. You typically need to be in the top 50% of your class, sometimes a little higher. It depends on the school you want to transfer to. If you want to transfer up one tier, you typically need to be in the top 30% of your class. And if you want to transfer up 2 tiers, it's possible, but unlikely, because you need to be in the top 5 to 10% of your class.
Right.
And when I say unlikely, I mean
95% of your class won't be there.
Exactly.
So
it's statistically
you shouldn't
unlikely.
bank on that, right?
Yeah, and just because you were in the top 1% of your undergrad does not guarantee anything in the first semester or 2 in law school, because there is a steep learning curve.
Yeah, certainly. So, I mean, your first year of law school is hard enough. If you can avoid having to put the extra stress of figuring out how to transfer on top of it, that would be great. So really trying to focus on getting into the law school where you want to be should be a priority in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely.
You got anything else, or that's pretty much the story as I've heard it before?
Yeah, so the takeaway is, if you haven't begun law school yet, put the extra time into the LSAT so that you can go where you want to go from the beginning. It's a much less stressful experience. If you've begun law school, figure out whether you want to transfer before the end of the first semester. That would be my recommendation.
Sounds good to me. So if you have any questions that you'd like us to answer on an episode of Dicta, you can send them to Carrie Ann at vincoprep.com.